Go home.
At the celebration party for the new CEO's inauguration, that's what Director Carter said to me. He always treated me with disdain, particularly of late, burdening me with unreasonable workloads and forcing me into overtime. Moreover, today, my seat, which was supposed to be at the party venue, was tossed outside. Hearing his words, I reached my breaking point. However, causing a scene would play right into his hands. I maintained my composure to the best of my ability and replied, "Understood." Then, I left the venue without showing any reaction. Immediately afterward, luxury cars started arriving in front of me. The person stepping out began talking to me with smiles, but upon witnessing this, he was taken aback. He ended up regretting his actions when he realized the relationship between the person and me. My name is Kevin Anderson. I'm turning 36 this year. I work at a manufacturing company located in a small town, serving as a team leader. Being a team leader at my age is somewhat early, but aside from that, I'm just an average person. I'm not particularly outstanding at my job, nor am I seen as elite. That's why I make it a point to never slack off in putting in the effort. I've been with this company for about 14 years now, and I genuinely enjoy my work. However, there's one thing I simply cannot tolerate. It's Smith Carter, who was appointed as the department head this year. He is a 52-year-old man known for his overbearing demeanor. His attitude towards me is particularly harsh.
Translate all the Spanish sections of this document, and add any missing information too.
Got it. When's the deadline?
I need it for tomorrow morning's meeting, so have it ready by then.
Tomorrow. He began assigning me impossible tasks right after he took on the role of department head. If I were to abandon my own duties to focus on this, I might manage to complete it in a few hours. But he handed me this task just an hour before checkout time. A brief review of the document confirmed it wasn't a job that could be finished in an hour. I informed him it was impossible, yet he insisted that as a team leader, should be able to manage it. I wanted to ask for help from other employees, but everyone was swamped with their own projects at that time. In the end, I couldn't seek assistance from anyone and had to stay late working overtime until midnight. By silently complying with his orders, I realized he was only treating me this way. Although he was overbearing towards other employees, he wasn't assigning them unreasonable tasks or setting unrealistic deadlines. Wondering why he was doing this, I decided to ask him directly. "Sir, why do you only assign unreasonable tasks to me?" I thought my question might be too straightforward, but there was no point in mincing words. Moreover, it was during a departmental drinking outing, so I hoped alcohol might lead to a candid response. As I awaited an answer, he suddenly burst into laughter.
Ha ha ha. You really haven't figured it out. You're incompetent.
Me?
Who else? I heard you're only a middle school graduate. How did someone like that even get hired here?
I was unsure how he knew, but yes, I'm a middle school graduate. My educational background isn't something I usually discuss, and I hadn't told anyone. According to him, me being a middle school graduate was why I was being overloaded with work. Is facing such injustice really fair? Under the influence of alcohol, my thoughts were a jumble. He found my puzzled look amusing and laughed even louder. After the drinking party ended, my usual daily life resumed the next day. The only difference was now I was being mocked for being a middle school graduate. At first, I could endure it, but the thought of these days continuing indefinitely was depressing. Lately, the mockery and insults from him had become a source of stress, causing me to break out in hives and lose sleep at night. I was going to the doctor and somehow managing to make it to work, but honestly, I felt so pushed to the limit that I wanted to call in sick. Still, as a team leader, I had responsibilities, and calling in sick felt unfair to my subordinates. Thinking of the hard-working people made it impossible for me to just run away. I wondered how long these days would continue. Every day was dominated by negative thoughts. In the midst of this, a new CEO was appointed. It had been rumored about for a while, and a party was held for the new CEO's appointment. The new CEO was not fond of speaking publicly and rarely showed his face. However, he was expected to make an appearance at this party, sparking rumors among the employees.
Looking forward to the celebration party for the new CEO.
Yeah, I guess.
You plan on coming. Pretty big of you to attend a party.
Despite all employees being invited to the new CEO's celebration party, he made such remarks. He probably just wanted to wear me down with his sarcasm. Initially, I considered not attending, but I couldn't let him have his way. I decided to attend the celebration party with confidence. On the day of the party, I arrived at the venue just in time. Employees were already gathering at the venue, sitting in their designated seats. I looked for my seat using the seat map provided. Unfortunately, I ended up next to him, but I couldn't imagine any trouble happening at such a large party. While looking for my seat, hoping for a peaceful attendance, I realized there was no chair prepared for me when comparing the seat map to the actual seats. It was as if there was a hole where my chair should have been. Seeing me standing dumbfounded with the seat map, Carter, who had already arrived, looked at me with a smirk.
What's wrong? Not sitting down?
No. It seems my seat is missing.
Of course it is. I threw it out beforehand.
I remembered seeing a chair placed oddly outside when entering the party venue. I thought it might have been due to the wind, but it seems that was the chair he had discarded. I see. Then, I'll go fetch it. As I told him and started to head outside, he called out loudly from behind.
Middle school graduates and incompetents, go home.
I thought he would be on his best behavior today, but it seems he didn't care about the new CEO's celebration party. A few people seemed to notice the commotion, but no one intervened. He was recognized as a troublesome director. Nobody stopped him. Facing such injustice, maybe it would be better to just leave. That's what I thought and responded to him. Understood. I'll leave as you've said.
Is that so? Finally admitted you're just a middle school graduate and incompetent.
He thought I was admitting defeat with those words. As I was about to leave with my bag, he decided to add insult to injury.
Must be lonely going back alone. Let me walk you to the exit.
Following me out, he continued. What a hassle. All I wanted was to get away from him. Just as I tried to leave the venue calmly, something happened. As we were leaving the party venue, luxury cars started arriving one after another. The cars stopping in front of the venue were unmistakably high-end. Among them, a particularly conspicuous black limousine stood out, and as we stood there in shock, its door opened. Out stepped the new CEO. He was dressed sharply in a suit, stylish tie, leather shoes, and a watch. Given his low public profile, few knew the new CEO had a taste for fashion. Looking at Carter, he seemed mesmerized by the smart stance of the newcomer. As soon as the new CEO saw us, he broke into a smile and jogged over.
Kevin, it's been a while. How have you been? Are you eating well?
Come on, I'm 36 now, stop treating me like a kid. I'm taking care of my health, don't worry. Watching me talk with the new CEO, his eyes widened in surprise.
What's the relationship between you and Kevin, if I may ask?
Kevin's my son. Haven't you told anyone?
Hearing the new CEO's words, Carter looked incredulous. Yes, to tell the truth, the new CEO and I are father and son. The new CEO's name is Eddie Anderson. The previous CEO was my grandfather, and with his retirement decided, my father took over the company. I didn't want to be accused of nepotism or getting the job through connections, so I never told anyone about being the grandson of the previous CEO and the son of the new CEO. Though, with the same last name, some might have guessed. At least, it seemed he had no clue at all.
Your son. So, does that mean Kevin will eventually become CEO?
It's not officially decided yet, but if things go as they are, I suppose that's a possibility.
Is that so?
My father seemed to sense something from our interaction. He looked intently at him, pondering what to say. I hadn't told my father about the harassment from him and didn't intend to make a big deal out of it.
Is there something you want to say?
But when my father asked that, I felt I had no choice but to speak up. He always had a way of knowing what I was thinking. To be honest, I've been harassed by my director, Carter, every day. I could see my father's eyebrows twitch for a moment. Carter was looking down, so I couldn't see his face, but his fists were clenched and shaking slightly. You see, there's a chair over there, right? He said he threw it out as harassment towards me. Told me middle school graduates and incompetents should go home.
Is that so? For confirmation, is what my son just said true?
My father asked, turning towards him. Surrounded by secretaries and security who came with my father, the atmosphere was already intimidating. In such a situation, admitting to harassing the CEO's son could lead to serious consequences. Regardless of actual outcomes, it's normal to consider the possibility of being fired. Especially since he was the type to bully those he perceived as below him, yet suck up to those above. So, facing the CEO, admitting to harassing his son was out of the question. Indeed, he remained silent, unable to say anything.
Well.
Never mind. The party is about to start. We'll talk about this later in more detail.
With that, my father walked into the party venue. I followed behind him, carrying the chair that had been thrown outside. I joined the party setting the chair at certain position. He did not show up after that. It allowed me to truly enjoy the party for the first time, so I was so glad for that. Perhaps I should have revealed my identity as the CEO's son sooner. That night, having enjoyed a fair amount of drink, I slept soundly for the first time in a while. The next day, I went to the office as usual. Hoping he had learned his lesson from yesterday's events. Expecting an apology from him, I sat at my desk. Usually, he would start piling work on me from the morning, but today he was unusually silent. As I worked through the morning in this new silence, the afternoon came. In the afternoon, we were called to the CEO's office, heading there in silence.
So, why were you harassing Kevin?
It's because he's a middle school graduate and can't do his job.
Really? Have you truly been unable to do your work?
I've completed everything asked of me, even staying late to finish tasks. After pondering for a moment, my father then asked.
By the way, do you even know why Kevin is a middle school graduate?
No, I don't.
Hearing his response, my father began to explain, bit by bit, why I didn't enroll in high school. First off, I had an older brother about 10 years my senior. He adored me, and I loved him back. However, after graduating from college, he decided to go abroad. Not wanting to be apart from him, I expressed my desire to follow, but he insisted I at least finish high school first. My father also said he couldn't let me go until I had completed high school, so I reluctantly gave up. Eventually, my brother left for overseas alone. We kept in touch regularly through emails and calls, so I didn't feel too lonely despite the distance. Then, I received news that my brother had fallen ill. Frantically, I pleaded with my father to let me go to him, and we hurried to his side. By the time we arrived, his illness had progressed significantly, and we couldn't celebrate our reunion. I had planned to return home after seeing my brother's face, but I couldn't bear to leave him and told him so. Initially, my father tried to bring me back by force, but seeing how determined I was, he agreed to let me stay with my brother. I then decided to take care of him with the help of locals, determined to stay by his side till the end. His illness was incurable, with no chance of recovery despite treatment. As his final moments drew near, my desire to stay with him grew stronger, and I found myself crying in solitude daily. A year after I arrived overseas, my brother passed away. He had gone abroad to study for the future leadership of our company. I returned home shortly after his passing but lacked the spirit to attend middle school, barely graduating with the minimum attendance required. Afterward, I didn't go to high school but eventually started working part-time to reintegrate into society. Finding solace in work, I gradually began to enjoy it. After working for several years, I was offered a position as a regular employee, and thus I became a full-time staff member. Having fully reintegrated, I started to regain confidence and aspired to pursue my brother's dream. Now, I work at the company as a regular employee, hoping to become someone capable of taking over someday. Listening silently to the story, Carter, glancing sideways, seemed to be crying.
I had no idea something like that happened.
Why are you crying?
I have a younger brother, and I couldn't help but see him in you.
Apparently, being a devoted younger brother lover, felt a complex mix of emotions seeing his brother in me. He added that he couldn't bear the thought of his own brother being harassed by a boss if he were in a similar situation. I had thought him to be cold-hearted, but this showed a different side. Watching him cry, I found myself thinking that. Seeing his remorseful state, my father said he would forgive him this time. Seeing how down he was, I felt compelled to forgive him too. Carter, thinking he wouldn't be forgiven, was relieved by my father's and my words. He promised to ensure nothing like this would happen again and left the CEO's office. Since then, he stopped assigning me unreasonable tasks or work that obviously couldn't be finished. His tone remained superior, but he started distributing work fairly and even helped when tasks were unfinished. It took me a while to get used to this, but after half a year, it felt normal. With Carter no longer harassing me, the office atmosphere seemed to improve noticeably. Indeed, a negative environment affects everyone around. The office becoming a brighter place seemed to increase our workload. A comfortable working environment encourages effort. If I ever become CEO, I vowed to create a good working environment for all employees. And if there are any employees facing harassment like I did, I resolved to protect them with all my might. Years passed, and I was promoted to manager. He was still the director, but one thing had changed. Our relationship had grown closer. We used to talk only about work, but now we share personal stories. And we even go out for meals after work or seek advice during tough times.
Remember, the trouble isn't your fault, so stand tall.
But the client's pressure is overwhelming.
Then, I'll accompany you to the next meeting.
Previously, I was told to handle troubles on my own, but now, being a subordinate, I'm being protected. Since it was said that I was seen in the same light as a younger brother, it's likely I'm still thought of as such. Truthfully, I've come to view him as a brotherly figure too. I sometimes wonder what life would have been like if my brother were still alive. Relationships can improve through small events, or they can end over mistakes. Having someone I can look up to like a brother has been truly fortunate. I initially thought he was unpleasant, but avoiding wrong actions led to a positive direction. I thought like this during our regular drinking sessions. Seeing me, he smiled over his drink. This experience taught me the importance of calm responses and earnest efforts. With a long life ahead, I aim to live by this lesson, keeping my brother's memory and aspirations alive.